Imagine this, your best friend tells you that he is not only a spy but also a killer. What would you do? Chapter 7. Jealousy Ocean's POV. The new kid that is always hanging around Riley is getting on my nerves. He is always hanging around her and she isn't pushing him away. I was watching them from afar as they walked with their lunch trays to their isolated table. Word has been spreading around in school about the new kid. Girls are saying that he is hot and some boys are jealous of his good looks. But I was jealous of his looks. I was jealous of who he hangs out with. Riley. Every time I see her laugh, it's like a stab to my heart because I know that I did not cause that melodic noise. I sighed and looked at my plate pitifully. Why does she let him in? What's so special about him? What's wrong with me? A small hand enclosed my bigger one. I looked up, seeing Sophie and everyone at my table staring at me in concern and pity. What's wrong? Sophie asked quietly. Then she caught herself. That was a stupid question. I mean, are you giving up on your mate? Maybe, I sighed defeated. No, everyone looked at Carly. No, you can't give up. Yet, and why not? Carly, can't you see that she is with someone else? She is laughing with someone else. And that someone else is not me. I hissed at her. Jake growled lowly. Suddenly, Sarah got up. We all looked at her. She stomped around the length of the table until she reached me. Stand up. She ordered calmly. My eyebrows furrowed. What? I said. Stand up. She said again, growing impatient. Once I stood up, she grabbed my arm, dragging me to Riley's table. Everyone got up to follow. We all gathered around Riley's table and sat in the empty seats, aware of the many stares we were getting. Riley had to cut off their conversation to gape at us, whilst Justin gave us a bored look. Yes. How can we help you? Justin asked, irritated that we disrupted their talk. Riley gave him an uneasy look and put her graceful hand on Justin's shoulder, trying to calm him down. That did not calm me down. That made me angrier. I had to clutch tightly onto my seat as I tried to suppress a growl from ripping through the tense atmosphere. Riley was the first to break the awkward silence. So, nice to see you guys again, but Justin and I need to go by. She got up quickly and rushed out of the cafeteria with Justin in tow. The minute they left, the gossiping started around us, but I was too distracted to care about it. All I cared about was that I was the hand Riley was holding. Riley's POV. Justin is surprisingly a fun guy, once you get to know him. I laughed as he told me about his first mission, how he was stuck on a tree and could not get down because there was a bear sleeping under it. Suddenly, the chairs that surrounded our table were pulled back and Ashton, Carly, Jake, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sophie and Brandon sat down. I looked at them shocked, while Justin gave them a look of boredom and a little irritation. Someone who knew Justin's background would know that he's considering if they are a threat. Yes. How can we help you? Irritation coded his words. I quickly put a hand on his shoulder, hoping that he'd calm down. He gave me a sideways glance and straightened in his seat. Noticing the stares we were getting and how uncomfortable Justin is, I took it as an opportunity to leave. So, nice to see you guys again. But Justin and I need to go by. I grabbed Justin's hand tightly and pulled him out of the cafeteria. I could finally breathe once we were out of the cafeteria. Are you okay, Riley? Justin asked, looking genuinely concerned for my well-being. I nodded, taking a deep breath. We walked side by side until we reached my locker. Hey, Justin, I asked, opening my locker. He looked down at me. Yes. Why do you think Ashton is hanging around me? He thought about it before answering. Maybe he really likes you. I mean, you are a cute girl. I blushed. You are the first person to call me cute. Why no? He raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? I nodded. That's strange. I wonder how they can miss such a cute girl. I grinned, liking the compliments he was throwing at me. Ashton called me beautiful on the first day of school, I said, thinking back on the first day I met him. Oh yeah. Looks to me like someone has a major crush. What? How do you know he has a crush on me? He has been showing signs of it ever since I've started spying on you. He said in a manner that made him seem intelligent. Why are we even discussing this? Let's get you to class now. Ashton's POV, I growled as I saw Heidi and Justin walking together. They have been attached at the hip ever since he came. They're even in the same classes. Wherever Riley is, Justin is there too. My wolf has been growling and heard threats at Justin for the whole day. I knew he felt threatened. He was worried he would lose his mate to Justin. Well, if you knew that the person you're supposed to spend your life with is on the verge of falling for someone else, do you know what I'm feeling? My wolf growled at me. What if she isn't falling for him? What if she's only friends with him? I shot back. To my agent extraordinaire, dad.丨Wolf, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My wolf was in the corner of my mind silently watching Riley and Justin. Then, Mrs. Janet came in, calling for the students' attention. All through the afternoon, I wasn't paying attention in class, but was instead watching Riley and Justin. When Riley was not in my class, however, they'd be thinking of ways to get Riley back. The bell rang, signaling school is over. I packed my things up and went to my group that was hanging out in the car park. Whilst I was walking to the cars, I saw Heidi and Justin walking into the woods. Then I got an idea. I ran to Brandon's car and threw my bag inside. I said a quick excuse on needing to take a run, then going to the forest and hid behind a tree before stripping my clothes and shifting. I sniffed the air trying to locate where they could be. I looked around sniffing things until I found a scent. Riley. I was following his smell when I heard talking up ahead. I bounded towards the noise until I came to a complete stop in a clearing, where there stood Riley and Justin. I barked, then growled. They froze and turned. Eyes widened, probably at my size. I growled again. Justin said to Riley quietly, "Go climb up a tall tree where that wolf can't get you. How about you? You'll be fine. Hopefully it won't eat me," he muttered. Riley slowly edged towards a tree. I lit her. She climbed so high, I couldn't see her. Then I noticed Justin at the base of a tree, reaching for a low branch. How did he get there so fast? He paused briefly looking at me before he pulled himself up. Then he proceeded to jumping up the tree, branch by branch smoothly. He was like a freak in ninja. Then from the branch she was sitting on, Riley called, "Justin, are you okay? Are you?" "I'm fine. Don't worry about me." Then silence filled the forest, except for the rustle of leaves and the twitter of birds. Then I left, hiding behind a tree hoping to make them think him gone. They did. After a few moments, they climbed down, walking into the forest, followed them, but kept my distance. "Are you done with your math homework?" Riley asked suddenly. "Yup, could you help me? In having a lot of trouble. We could go to my house." "Sure. Let's go. It was so cool when you climbed that tree. It's called training. My friend had to train for a long time. You make me want to be a spy now." "Wait. What?" To my agent extraordinaire, dad.丨Wolf, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm not only a spy, Riley, I'm also an assassin. My eyes widened. I bounded out towards them, having the urge to protect Riley from Justin, but they were already at house going in. Upon seeing me, Riley gasped and shut the door tightly, locking it, hoping that she would be fine with an assassin. I walked away slowly with my ears perked for her scream. It never came. At least now I know where house is and I can check on her later. That was one positive point. Chapter Riley's POV. There is something familiar about that wolf. Its eyes were beautiful, light blue, like the sky. It was huge too, larger than an average wolf, that's for sure. It was midnight black. Its fur was sleek and shiny. To my agent extraordinaire, dad.丨Wolf, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was beautiful. I gestured for Justin to follow me up the stairs. We walked into my room and I got out my math homework to start working on it. I asked him for help whenever I was stuck. "What were you thinking when you saw the wolf?" I asked suddenly. He looked up from his phone and said, "We're screwed." I chuckled. "How about you?" I thought about it. "Justin's gonna die," I said. Justin smiled. I continued working in comfortable silence. Not long after, Justin stood up. "Hey Riley, I need to go." I looked at him, confused. "Another mission? What kind?" "I have to kill someone." My face paled. "Oh, okay." He turned to walk away when I called him again. He turned. "Yes, how? How many people have you killed?" This question has been bugging me ever since I found out he was an assassin. He looked away. "To my agent extraordinaire, dad.丨Wolf, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I've lost count over the years. Stopped counting when it went over 20. I gulped. "When did you start killing?" "When I was 13, I joined a gang. We killed other threats, other games. Since I learned not to give a second thought on who I kill, they made me their assassin. So when people ask us to help kill someone, they all send me." "Oh, okay. Be safe. Bye, see you tomorrow," I said, giving him a small smile and walking him to the front door. "Don't worry, in the professional. They'll be back before you can say Justin is awesome." He smirked and closed the door. I started cooking dinner for my father, and as I was finishing, the doorbell rang. Father would usually barge in demanding for food, so I knew this was him. I walked to the door and cracked it open. Standing in front of me was Ashton. "What are you doing here? How do you know Idea?" I asked Justin. He said, although it sounded more like a question. "I said, unconvinced, knowing Justin wouldn't tell anyone where I live. "Anyways, what were you doing here? You aren't supposed to be here." "It's okay, Riley. I'm just here to ask why Justin can be your friend when I can't." He narrowed his eyes at me as I gulped inaudibly. "He was my childhood friend. I lied through easily. I had to make up what's happening at home over the years, so I became quite an expert at it. Then why can't I be your friend?" I thought about it for a while. "It's complicated. You got your answer. Now leave." I went to close the door, but his foot got in the way. "What do you mean complicated?" "Oh." Hello, a new voice joined in. "Just when it couldn't get better," I thought bitterly. Ashton turned around quickly and smiled politely. "Hello, sir." Father eyed him, then made eye contact with me. I grimaced. I know that look. It's the look that said that I was in trouble. My hand unconsciously touched my stomach where the bruise was. "What's your name?" my dad asked. Quite rudely. "Ashton Slade," he answered. "May I ask what you were doing here at my house?" Father questioned. "I came to talk to Riley," Ashton said, oblivious of the fact my father was glaring at me. "Oh, Ray." Father looked at me with a look that promised punishment later. "Well, to my agent extraordinaire, dad.丨Wolf, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. If you'd be so kind to get out of my property, you'd appreciate it." Father quickly shooed Ashton off and pushed me into the house. He slammed the door and turned, punching my cheek. I gasped in shock and fell to the ground. "You stupid girl. You said that you got rid of him. If you had gotten rid of him, he wouldn't be here." Father kicked me in the stomach, making all the air in my lungs wish out. He grabbed my shirt, pulled me up and gave me another punch. He sent a few more kicks to my stomach until red liquid stained my shirt. Then he left me on the floor, struggling to get air into my lungs. I dragged myself to my room ready to sleep. But before that, I need to wash the dishes after Father has eaten. I sighed and went back into the kitchen. Ashton's POV. I walked away from Riley's house, confused at what had happened. So Riley was childhood friends with an assassin and spy. I can't be her friend because it's complicated. Her dad is antisocial. I groaned in frustration. Mates are so confusing. I opened my front door and was surrounded by Sophie, Sarah and Carly. "So, where were you?" Sophie asked slyly. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. "I mean, where were you?" She repeated. "I went for a run. Didn't I say that at school?" "Yes, you did. But we follow continued. And you were stalking Riley and Justin. Sarah finished. Okay. Can you first start finishing each other's sentences? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Don't change the subject, Ashton, they said in sync. What's going on? Mom appeared beside Sophie. Ashton is stalking his mate, Carly said with a smug look on her face. I rolled my eyes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You do not stalk your mate, no matter how much you might like her, Mom stated. Ugh, I can't believe in discussing this with you girls. Of all people. I groaned, embarrassed. A www is Ashton said, blushing. Jake appeared out of nowhere. Piss off. Jake, I grumbled. Don't need to be shy now, Ashton. Even your younger brother can see those rosy cheeks. Jake teased. I pushed past them going up to my room. I jumped onto my bed and buried my face into a pillow. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Come down for dinner. My mom screamed for me. I groaned and sat up. I looked at the time and was surprised to see it was 8:36. I must be fallen asleep. I stumbled out of my room and down the stairs. I stopped in front of the kitchen door and opened it. The heads of the pack members turned, their eyes fixed on me. Sorry I'm late, guys. I fell asleep. I apologized as I went to my seat in between Sophie and Jake. A few responded while the others went for the food. So are you still the seventh wheel? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Or maybe you've found your mate. Some people tuned into the blooming conversation. Everyone has been waiting for my mate to come, so it's like a tradition to ask me during dinner. I found her, I said, looking up from my plate of food. Everyone began congratulating and asking who the lucky girl is. Her name is Riley Thompson and she doesn't know about us werewolves. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Does that mean she's a human? A girl asked. Yes, anyone who messes with her will have to deal with me, I said, making eye contact with everyone. So they'll know I'm serious now. They'll have to deal with all of us, Mom said, putting a comforting arm on my shoulder. And I don't think any of you wolves would like to feel the power of Jessica Slade, Jessica said, waving her hands in the air. Then Carly was floating, not at the table. Jack and Mom shouted. Carly instantly dropped back on her chair. Oh. Carly rubbed her backside. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Where does it hurt? Do I need to bring you to the hospital? Jake continued to fuss over Carly. Jake, I'm fine. My butt just hurts. Carly rolled her eyes. I sat there quietly picking at my food, listening to their conversation. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. When is she going to come? The dining room was silent again. I took a deep breath. I don't know. Right now, she is pushing me away. Cue the growls, and hanging out with her childhood friend, Justin, who was secretly a spy and assassin. Outburst filled the room. Quiet. Everyone was silent. My father, the alpha, was speaking. So, Ashton, you're saying that Riley, your mate, and Justin, the spy and assassin, are childhood friends. Yes, and she's pushing you away but is hanging out with Justin. He clarified. Yup. This is something I've never heard of before, my dad said under his breath. My mom intersected. Why don't we discuss a lighter subject? Something not so depressing. I gave her a grateful look. I got up, put my plate in the sink and went to my room to end the day. Chapter 9, Hell's Angels. Riley's POV. I walked to school alone today. Justin didn't come to my house. Probably caught a flu and Cal didn't make it. I walked into school and to my locker. Hey. I let out a shriek and dropped my books. I turned to glare at Ashton and then going down on my hands and knees to pick the Fordham books up. Ashton crouched down to my level and asked, "Where's Justin?" "I don't know. He didn't come to my house today," I said, picking up a book and standing. I closed my locker and walked to my homeroom with Ashton chasing me. "Yuki, you don't look good." "Gee, thanks." I rolled my eyes. I didn't mean it like that. You do look good every day, actually. I should probably stop talking." He looked away and cleared his throat. "I'm not the type that outshines the others." "Are you sure? You are the only girl that has ever caught my attention." "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilbay, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "How about Erin?" "Nope. Never." Something warm and fuzzy was spread all over my body, and I felt something I have not felt in a long time. Contentment. I got into class and headed to the back of the room, where my seat was. Ashton sat next to me. "Are you feeling well? You look quite pale." "And where's Justin?" "I'm fine. I'm just worried about Justin. He doesn't get sick easily." I was really thinking about his murder mission. "Dead?" "No, he said that he is a professional. But what if the victim was expecting him? That's a possibility. But Justin is smart. He wouldn't be careless on missions. I'm positive he is alive. I hope he is." Riley. Ashton's hand was waving in front of my face. I blinked. "What?" "You spaced out," he stated. "Oh, sorry. Were you saying something?" "Nope. Just wondering why you were so quiet." "What were you thinking of?" I tried coming up with an excuse. But I didn't have to because Mr. Lopez chose the right time to come in. "Can all of you take your seats?" I sighed in relief and faced the front, not looking at Ashton. When homeroom was done, I got up to go to art. When walking down the hallway, Ashton appeared next to me. "You left without me," he stated. I raised an eyebrow at him. So he sighed. "Never mind. Just thought that we were now friends." Then he avoided all eye contact with me. He even went ahead to put on a heartbroken face. Great. Now I feel guilty. I ignored him, or at least tried to. I finally gave up. "Will you stop there?" I asked, exhilarated. He looked at me with sad puppy dog eyes and sighed. "Stop what?" I scowled. "What's that?" he asked innocently. "You're so frustrating, you know." I sped up my pace before I had a chance to punch his perfect face. I burst into the art room and found a seat near the back. By the time Ashton came in, I was trying to hide behind an empty canvas. He looked to have taken a deep breath before looking straight at me. He smirked and proudly walked to me, happy to have found my hiding spot. He sat next to me and smiled. He must have ditched the heartbroken act. "Why do you run away? You were annoying me." He laughed, although I didn't find it funny. Just then Carly, her boyfriend, and Austin walked in. They spotted us and Jake smirked and wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. I leaned towards Ashton and whispered, "I'm gonna pretend I did not see that." Ashton chuckled, shaking his head. Carly had a bright smile on her face as she skipped over. "Hey," she chirped, sitting next to me. I gave her a small smile in greeting. Jake sat next to Carly. "So why are you suddenly sitting with us?" He directed the question to me. "I didn't mean to sit with you." Ashton was just being a bad stalker and following me everywhere. I glared at Ashton. Carly gasped. "Ashton, I thought we taught you not to stalk your ma, Riley, anymore." Ashton held his hands up in defense. "Sorry, but no one was accompanying her." "I'm right here, why no," I said, looking between Ashton and Carly. Carly gave me an apologetic look. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilbay, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Miss Mackenzie came in. "Stop chatting and get to work. I want all your sketches to be done by the end of the period." I took my sketch from my bag and resumed drawing. I was drawing the black wolf I saw in the woods. After my encounter with the wolf, I had been thinking about it for a while. It was so intimidating, but gentle at the same time. What to draw? Carly peeked over my shoulder and gasped, "Wow." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "I think you do want to look at this." Carly tugged at Ashton's sleeve. He looked at my drawing and his jaw dropped. "Wow." I looked at my drawing and cringed. "Is it that bad?" Austin glanced at my picture and said, "Nope." Carly elbowed him in the ribs. "It's not just good." Jake got up to see my artwork. "Hey, is that Ashton's?" "Whoa." Carly then elbowed Jake's stomach, effectively shutting him up. She glared at him and in response he smiled sheepishly. "Be careful with what you say, Jake. That was a close one." Austin hissed quietly. "I don't think I was supposed to hear that. If you ask me what I think of my drawing skills, I'd say that I'm not that great. Sure, I might be pretty good at drawing, but I'm definitely not the best. Get to work, people. You don't have much time left." Ms. Mackenzie shouted. I quickly handed my drawing to Ms. Mackenzie and she said that I could leave class early. I strolled to my locker and unlocked the lock. "Hey Riley," a voice greeted. I slammed my locker and spun on my heels to look at the person. It was Justin, who had his arm wrapped up in a cast. "Oh, hey Justin, where were you today? What happened to your arm?" I asked quickly. You know the mission I had to go for yesterday?" He slowly asked. "The one where you have to kill?" "Yes, why?" "You see, the guy had a dog. A big one. I thought he was a dog type of person, judging from the picture my client gave me. So I guess I was just being careless." He gave me an embarrassed smile and chuckled. "However, I didn't." "What? You could have had worse. You were lucky that time. Did you complete your mission?" I asked, hesitantly. A proud smile made its way onto Justin's face and he gave me a thumbs up. "Yes." He didn't expect a thing. He was watching TV. He winked at me and slung an arm around my shoulders. "Let's go eat." He guided me to the cafeteria and opened the door. As we lined up for our food, he asked me, "Were you with anyone while I was gone?" "Yep, I was with Ashton." Why? His eyes widened. Then he whispered, "You do know that you aren't allowed to be around him?" "Right. It's what your dad told me to do. Make sure no one hangs with you." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That's his mission given by father. We walked to our table, and I wondered if he knew what was happening at home. Voicing out my question, I asked him, "Justin, do you know what my father is doing to me?" To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was confused. Isn't he my friend? Wouldn't he want to help stop the abusing? I didn't realize Justin was still speaking until he said, "He is just protective over you. Riley, some dads are like this because they are afraid to lose their daughter. That's all. He doesn't know. He thinks my father cares about me. If he knew, he'd try to help me." "Is there something wrong, Riley?" Just a nasty concern laced his words. I shook my head quickly. "Nothing's wrong. But may I be the first person to sign your cast?" "Sure, but you won't be the first person," he said, turning the cast so the insides were peeking a bit. Some of my friends from the gang had already signed it. There were many signatures. I wonder how many gang members there are. I took the offered marker from Justin and signed his cast. I made sure that my signature was big and impossible to miss. I drew a heart over the I in my name and aligned it numerous times. Justin whistled. "Wow, that would be hard to miss." I smiled and continued drawing random things that would make Justin seem tough. In the midst of drawing a skull, I quickly drew a flower. Duh. I backed away from Justin's cast to show him what I drew. "Thanks for making it look nicer, Riley. Is that a flower?" He frowned. "What is a flower doing there?" "Every man has a feminine side. You just have to learn how to deal with it." His mouth cracked into a small smile. "Then you'll have a lot to learn." I took an apple from my tray and bit into it. I chewed slowly as I thought of what I'd do once I could grasp her. Where would I go? Who could I live with? These were the simple questions I would always get stuck on. Who could I trust? Justin is one, but I don't think he'd want anyone to live in the same house as him. Plus, my past would just be extra baggage. I sighed in frustration and bit into my apple again. I looked at Justin only to see him glaring at something across the cafeteria. I turned my head and saw Ashton glaring right back at him. I looked between Ashton and Justin, amused at what I'm witnessing. These two have made a silent hatred for each other. Then, Ashton walked towards us quickly and sat next to me. I was looking for you after art class. Ashton turned to me, ignoring the death glares he was getting from Justin. Oh, sorry, I was just hungry. I said the first thing that came to mind. Ashton looked down at my tray, which had nothing but a slice of pizza. Soon, the others joined us. It was really awkward for Justin and I, seeing that we were the odd ones out. Suddenly, Carly asked Justin about his cast. We looked at him expectantly, waiting for his answer. A dog bit me, he said, partially telling the truth. Sophia's face scrunched up. Did it hurt? Justin raised a brow. What do you think? Can I sign it? Carly asked, piping up. Sure. He gave her the marker and laid his bandaged arm on the table. May I sign it too? Sophie asked, looking at his cast. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Then, Sophie saw the other signatures. What's this? She flipped his arm over to reveal his gang members' names. She gasped. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Woe was right. In the middle of the sea of names was the name of the gang, Hell's Angels. Why is that name so familiar? Like Ivy heard it before. Isn't that the gang where the leader's surname was Westcott? Sarah asked. Recognition flashed in her eyes. Westcott. Hell's Angels. I gasped. Benjamin Westcott. Chapter 10, Bathroom Problems. Riley's POV. It can't be. Justin can't be from Hell's Angels. No way. Riley. I blinked and looked at Ashton. Worry written all over his face. Yes. I asked, almost mechanically. Are you all right? You look a little pale. Sophie said. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I took in a shaky breath and gave them what I hope was a steady smile. I jumped when I felt a hand enveloped mine. I looked up and my eyes met Ashton's. Are you sure you're okay? He murmured quietly. She said she was fine, Justin said, eyes narrowing at Ashton. Then he put a hand on my shoulder and squeezed it lightly. Suddenly I felt the blood that came back to my face drain again. Nothing mattered except the hand that was on my shoulder. I cleared my throat and shrugged to shrug Justin's hand off my shoulder. I slipped my hand out of Ashton's grasp too. I said a quick excuse and power walked out of the cafeteria. I went to the bathroom to wash my face quickly, but as washing, I remembered that I had a bruise on my cheek. My eyes wide and I looked at my reflection. Too late. The concealer was already washed off, revealing the nasty bruise. I groaned. How am I going to conceal it now? I know that the hallway is packed with people, so I can't get out. Entrapped. The bathroom door creaked open and my head snapped at the sound. Carly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And Sophie stood in the doorway gaping at me. Sarah must have found her voice first. What? What happened to your cheek? Who did that? I touched my cheek and winced. Ignoring her question. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Don't tell anyone, please. And do any of you have concealer? What? Sophie cried. If you didn't see the huge bruise on your cheek, you should check the mirror. I know I have a bruise there, I said, irritated. Oh, I ran into a pole. I stumbled over my words. Well then, that pole must be really strong since the bruise is quite big, Sarah said, not buying my lie. It hurt a lot. I said, not happy with my lie. So do any of you have concealer? Yep, I've either caught in my locker. Carly rushed out of her lady's room to get her concealer. Then we were in uncomfortable silence. Sophie occasionally gave me looks, while Sarah openly stared. I looked at anything but them whilst impatiently waiting for Carly to return with her concealer. Then I heard murmurs at the opposite side of the door. Carly, what happened? Riley just left suddenly. Is she okay? Someone who sounded like Justin asked Carly. My eyes widened. Oh no. I harshly whispered to Sophie. Tell them I don't feel so well. I shoved her out the door. Sophie, where's Riley? Is she all right? Ashton instantly asked Sophie. Oh. She doesn't feel good. But I'm sure she'll feel better soon. Don't worry. Now Carly, if you did just go check on Riley. Sophie trailed off. Then the door opened again and Carly slipped in. You'll have to tell us the real story later, Carly whispered, tossing her concealer at me. Sarah nodded in agreement. I almost forgot she was there. I sighed but nodded. They already saw it. It's useless hiding it. I could just tell them what really happened and make sure they don't tell anyone. Or maybe I could make up a believable lie. I applied the concealer carefully, making sure to not apply too much pressure. I twisted the container shut and gave it back to Carly. Don't mention it, she waved and walked out with Sarah. Sarah threw one last look over her shoulder before opening the door wider and stepping out. Once I stepped out of the bathroom, I was cornered by two very worried boys. Are you all right? Sophie said you weren't feeling well. Do you want me to bring you home? Ashton asked quickly, before I had time to answer. Justin asked, do you need to go to the nurse's room? Are you feeling better now? I huffed, not liked being interrupted. I'm fine, if you don't mind me saying. Just a temporary headache. They nodded uncertainly. Okay, let's go to Mrs. Janet's class. Justin ushered me in the right direction with Ashton tagging along not far behind. Justin opened the door for me and I said a small thanks before making my seat. Through class, I was receiving glances from Ashton and Justin. I mentally rolled my eyes and tried to listen to Mrs. Janet's lecture. That was a close one back at the bathroom. I can't believe they almost found out. I need to be careful not to wash off my makeup next time. I spent the whole period trying to think of a lie that I would tell the girls later. Finally, I came up with one. I then reviewed the lie to see if there was any holes. I found a few but came up with some answers for them. By the end of the lesson, I was ready for the interrogation. The day passed in a blur, and then school was over. I walked out of the front doors with Justin beside me. Then I heard my name being called, and when I turned, I saw Carly waving at me. I sighed and told Justin to stay where he was and went over to Carly, Sophie, and Sarah. They dragged me away from their groups here in distance and looked at me expectantly, waiting for my story. So last night, I began telling the tale of how I got my bruise. I told them that I was drunk last night and got into a fight. I'm pretty sure that I was convincing because the next thing I know, I was being lectured on how bad it is to get drunk and how I don't look like the type who would like drinking. So can I go home now? Sure. Don't get too drunk, Sophie reminded. Oh, remember that I smiled at her and waved. But as I walked to Justin, my smile melted and in its place was a frown. What's with that frown? Justin asked with a small smile of his own. Nothing. Just thinking about things. I brushed it off. I was really thinking of what would happen if I had told them the truth. Would they try to help me? Or call the child service? I know that if I had to survive on my own, I'd be dead. Let's go home, Justin said, walking to the forest. I followed behind him, keeping my distance. I still can't believe he is from Hell's Angels. I wonder what he'd do if I saw Benjamin again. Scream my head off. Run like there is no tomorrow. Cuss at him with words that would make any grown man cry. Let's just hope I'd never see him ever again. I said goodbye to Justin and got into my house. I turned around and found myself face to face with my father. My eyes widened and I collected myself quickly. I cleared my throat and asked, "What are you doing home so early?" He took his time replying. "Remember a couple days ago I said you were going to meet my friends? Well, I want you to meet them today." I stared at him while he looked at me expectantly. What were you waiting for? Go get dressed. I rushed up the stairs. Before I got far, I heard him holler, wear dress. Make sure you have makeup on so they won't see how ugly you really are. I opened my closet to reveal many sweaters and sweatpants. I reached far behind all of the clothes until I grasped soft material. I pulled out the small red dress. It was strapless and ended at mid-thigh. It hugged my curves tightly and had my whole back exposed. It also had a sweetheart neckline that went quite deep, so it left a little for the imagination. The dress had glitter and jewels to cover the top left corner, and a busted pads to make my boobs look bigger than they are. My dad had bought this for me because he wanted me to look good in front of his buddies and not like some starved girl. I took a quick shower and dried my hair. Then I sat in front of my desk and applied my makeup. I put on some blush and foundation and did smoky eyes. I also put on some mascara to make my eyelashes look thicker. I applied a thin coat of lip gloss and slipped on my dress. I did my hair in loose curls and used a jeweled pin to pin my hair to the side. I strapped my 6-inch heels to my feet and got up to get familiarized to my extra height. I made my way down the stairs and found my dad waiting in the living room. When I entered the room, he gave me a once-over to check if I looked good. He nodded in satisfaction and got up and walked out the door. I followed him into his car, making sure not to scratch it. The drive was short and silent. Not that I'd want to talk to him. We pulled up to a bar that had loud music vibrating through the walls. I got out and saw the colored light speaking from the bottom of the door. We walked up to it and past the bouncer. My dad and I made our way past the sweaty grinding bodies and into a quiet, empty hallway. We soon found ourselves in front of a door that had loud, booming laughter behind it. I took a deep breath, knowing what's beyond the door. My father looked at me. Do you know what to do? Why? I nodded. Do not talk. Do not make eye contact. Smile. Obey what they say unless you forbid it, and follow you wherever you go. I recited. Pleased. Good. Now in we go. And he pushed the door open. Chapter 11, Club. Ashton's POV. Why did you want to talk to Riley? Why can't we? You don't answer a question with a question. Well, I believe I just did. I gave Sarah an annoyed look. Never mind. We had just arrived home and I tried to talk to both Sophie and Carly, but they pretended to ignore me, so I managed to corner Sarah. But being the stubborn dog she was, I did not make any progress. As I passed the kitchen, I heard murmuring inside. I did not want to eavesdrop on their conversation, but when someone on the other side mentioned the word Hell's Angels, I was against the door with my ear pressed against it. With their soft talking, a normal human wouldn't be able to hear. There are perks of being a werewolf. Their conversation sounded like this. Guy 1, did you hear about Hell's Angels? Guy 2, no. What about them? Guy 1, had people hire them to murder and spy. Guy 2, they must be some hardcore game. Guy 1, yeah. I've also heard that they're really slippery. Police have been trying to catch them for a long time. I think I read on the newspapers that the age range is around 13 and above. Some people say their leader has killed at the age of 10 because Guy 2, poor guy. His innocence taken away from such a young age. Guy 1, yeah. They have been doing vandalism, street fight, dealing drugs, and murder. Guy 2, I wonder where the hideout is. Guy 1, that's what the police are trying to find. Their hideout. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I spun on my heel to face Erin. She fluttered her fake eyelashes at me. Long time no see, Ashton, she said, trying to sound seductive, but instead sounded desperate. I barely gave her a glance when I said, sure. She huffed, but tried again by dragging her finger down my arm. Wanna go have some fun? She purred. No thanks. Excuse me, I pushed past her and to the stairs to her at a time. I quietly closed my bedroom door and slopped to my bed. Wast Hell's Angels on Justin cast? If he said he was a spy and assassin, could he? But that's not possible. I pondered on the question that was running around my head. Could Justin be one of their assassins? I finally concluded that it'd need more evidence. I heard a knock on my door and shouted to the person that the door was open. My mom's head came into view. I sat up and gave her a suspicious look. "What's up, Mum?" She looked at me and pointed to herself innocently. "Oh, me." I nodded. She gave me a big smile. "Oh, nothing. Nothing's up." She even did her quotes. "Sure," I said, patiently waiting for her to continue. Suddenly she asked, "Has Riley warmed to you yet?" I expected that question to come from my mother's mouth soon. "I don't think so," I said quietly, "but I promise that she'll be home within at most 2 months." My mother gave me a comforting smile and patted my hand. "Take your time. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." She needs time to get settled. I mean, she is new here. I nodded, understanding what she said. She got up to leave, but before she walked out the door, I asked her, "Mom, what if she doesn't like me? What if she rejects me?" I was terrified. I've seen werewolves die from rejection. Well, not really see them die, but I know that they go into depression. I don't want to be the depressed kid in the corner. My mom looked at me and walked back to my bed and sat next to me. "She won't. You are handsome and nice. She won't be able to resist a guy like you." She smiled and left the room, this time with no interruptions. I groaned and laid down on my back, staring at the ceiling. I wonder what Riley is doing right now. Riley's POV. I groaned and cracked my eyes open, immediately shutting them because of the burning sunlight streaming through my windows. I opened them again and blinked a few times, adjusting to the light. I looked around my surroundings and saw that I was in my room. Heaving a sigh, I looked down at my clothes and saw that I was still in my dress. I got up from my bed and stretched. Then, I went to my closet to pick some clothes to wear. As I was changing, I thought of last night. There were strippers on a stage, men of all ages scattered around, either grinding against women or having dry sex in the middle of the floor. I got some stares from both the women and men, because I was younger than the legal age. But to the hoary men there, the younger, the better. I was offered drinks, but managed to decline politely. I grew really uncomfortable under the lustful gaze of the men. I was also sent with envious ones from the women because I caught the attention of most of the men. My father guided me to a bunch of men at a table. They were laughing, ignoring the women sitting on their laps trying to get their attention. My dad pulled out a chair and motioned for me to pull one out as well. Once we were seated, everyone turned their attention to us. A guy with black hair said, "Hey Dave, that your daughter?" My dad said coolly. The guy lifted my chin to look at me in the eye. Then to my dad. "Pretty one she is. Looks like her mother." Dad stiffened beside me. He was very touchy whenever someone mentions my mother. Yes, he still loves her even though she's dead. That's why I'm still around him. That and because I don't have anywhere to go. I took the time to look around the table. Most of them consisted of older men with slots on their laps. Then the dark-haired guy turned by to look at me. Such a poor girl. Has no mother at such a youthful age. He mused. I looked down sadly. "You know, she'd be great for leading. She is strong and durable. Maybe you could sell her to me." The dark-haired guy asked my father. My father's head snapped upwards. "No," he said, leaving no room for arguments. The dark-haired guy continued to try and persuade my father into selling me, but each time he refused. They ignored me until my dad turned to me. "Go get me a bottle of vodka." I nodded and went to the bartender. I sat on a high chair and waited for the bartender to come. When he came, he looked me over once, but his eyes lingered at my chest. His eyes met mine and he gave me a sick-looking smile. "What can I do for a lovely gal like you on this lovely evening?" I smiled back, disgusted on the inside. "I need a bottle of vodka, but I've no money. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Making my tone sad, he looked unsure at first before masking it up and giving me another flirty smile. "Sure, hun. I'll get you a bottle free of charge." I faked gasp. "You do that for me?" He nodded, proud of himself. I giggled and ran my hand down his arm. "Thank you." He threw me a wink, then went to get the vodka. Once he left, I dropped my FA8 and ran my hand lightly across my face, sighing. I hate taking advantage of people. When the bartender came back, I smiled sweetly. Thank you. I wrapped my fingers around the bottle before walking back to my father. I made sure to sway my hips for effect. When I reached my father, the dark-haired guy looked irritated. I put the bottle in front of my father and he nodded his head in approval. Then he opened the bottle and took a swig of vodka. The dark-haired guy opened his mouth to speak but was cut off by my father. I said, no deal. She is my daughter and I am her guardian. So when I say she's not for sale, she's not for sale and that's final. The dark-haired guy grunted in annoyance. Fine. But watch out. I'm gonna get her soon. He turned to me and nodded his head in goodbye. Good to see you again, Riley. Then he left with me looking at his back. Confused, I turned my gaze to my father, silently questioning him. He looked at me and snapped. What? Don't look at me like that. I quickly looked away. My dad all of a sudden stood up and said a quiet, let's go. I shuddered at the thought of last night. With that many men groping me, I am never going back to a club. And the dark-haired dude? Didn't he say that he was going to get me? What for? I shook my head, getting rid of the thoughts. People these days. Ugh. I emerged from my room in jeans and a loose hoodie. I walked into the kitchen and saw a sticky note on an apple. I picked it up and read it while taking a bite out of the apple. It read, go buy more food. Make sure you don't spend more than 100, Dad. I picked up the one from the counter and walked out of the house. To the grocery store. Chapter 12, Paul McIntosh Riley's POV. I walked through the aisles looking for the ingredients for tonight's dinner. As I turned to the next aisle, I banged into someone. I immediately apologized and looked up to see a woman smiling at me. It's quite all right, dear. It's my fault for not seeing you. She gave me a warm smile before looking past me. I turned around and saw Ashton and a little girl walk towards the woman. Hey, Mom. He stopped talking abruptly, before inhaling deeply. Then his eyes connected to mine. Riley. The two females' eyes widened. Riley. Ashton's mom said, looking at me. Then she burst into a big grin and started giggling crazily. The little girl, who I assume was Ashton's sister, stepped forward and stuck out her hand. Nice to meet you, Riley. My name is Jessica, but you can call me Jessica. She looked at Ashton before smirking. Then she turned to me and said, my brother has been talking all about you ever since the first day of school. I can tell he already has a Jess. Ashton glared at his little sister, but she shrugged it off before continuing. As I was saying before I was so rudely cut off, Ashton has a crush on you and so far I approve of you. So you may date my brother. I blushed at that and Ashton's mom let out an AWW. Ashton scowled and pulled me away from them. I have to talk to Riley and when I come back. You two better be calmed down. But before Ashton, I turned the corner. Jessica shouted, I'm sure we will become good friends one day. Riley, see you soon. And I think I heard Mrs. Slade say, I think I can hear my grandkids coming. Then she started giggling again. Ashton dragged me far away from his family, muttering things under his breath. Turned to face me and he was blushing. I stared at him, waiting for him to make the first move. After rubbing his face with his hands a couple of times, he opened his eyes. When he saw me with my eyebrows raised, he groaned. I know. My family is weird. And yes, I do like you. I blushed brightly. Ashton chuckled. You're so cute when you blush. That comment, of course, made me blush brighter. I looked away, cleared my throat, and coughed hotly. I wanted to say that I liked him too, but if he asks me out on the spot, it'd be in trouble. He sighed and said, see you on Monday. Then he walked off. I followed him back to get my cart of food. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was near him. I still have to keep my distance. When I was about to go into the lane Ashton went into, I heard bits of his and his mom's conversation. Did out. Come home. Mate. Brave. Mrs. Slade whispered. Of course not. I don't. Goddess. Perfect. Ashton whispered back. I decided not to eavesdrop anymore and walked around the corner to get my cart. Jessica jumped up and ran to me, hugging my torso. I missed you. I gave her a light laugh. It was only 2 minutes. She looked at me dead in the eyes and said, To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was 3 minutes and 43 seconds. I gave her a weird look and dashed and let out a nervous laugh. Okay, Jessica, Riley needs to go home. You have to say bye now. By Jessica chirped. I smiled at them. By Ashton, Jessica, and Mrs. Slade. Ashton gave me a small wave, while Jessica and Mrs. Slade were waving their hands like there was a bee on it. By Hun, it was nice to meet you. You can't tots come over any time. Ashton and Jessica gaped at their mother. Mom, they yelled. I let out a small giggle. Mrs. Slade's eyes widened. The WW, even her laugh is so totally cute. She cooed. Ashton groaned and pulled my cart out of the aisle. Riley, you have to go now. I smirked at him and walked to the cashier that was at the front of the store. Once I paid for my groceries, I walked home, carrying the heavy bags. I opened the front door and dumped the food on the table. My forearms ached from the weight that was originally on it. I started unpacking the food and putting them on my cabinets. When I was midway into putting the peanut butter in its cupboard, the doorbell rang. Wondering who it is, I answered the door, reveling the dark-haired man from last night. I stared at him curiously as he gave me a kind smile. Why, hello there, Riley. It's so good to see you again. He cooed sweetly as he took my hand and gave it a light kiss. I shuddered when his slimy lips brushed my hand and managed a small nod in greeting. I don't believe we have been properly introduced last night. My name is Paul McIntosh. Paul said his name like it held great importance. I nodded for him to continue. I've been searching for someone special to help me lead this group of people. These people only have the one same goal in life. Looking me in the eye, I opened my mouth to speak for the first time since he came. What, may I ask, is their goal? I questioned in interest. He smirked heavily, like he had won a lottery. Well, my dear, that is the part for you to find out. And the only way for you to find out is to become their leader. I thought about it for a while. Finally, I made my decision. But before I could open my mouth, someone interrupted. Shelby staying here. Thank you. My dad stepped out from behind Paul. My dad scowled and shot daggers at Paul. Paul smirked smugly and turned to me. Hope to see you soon, Riley. Bye. With that, he turned and walked down the street. We stared at his back until he was out of sight. What did he say? I looked at my dad to see him eyeing me suspiciously. He asked me to lead this group of people. I said slowly, careful to not mention that they all had the same goal. I should have known. My dad muttered as he pushed past me, bumping my shoulder roughly. The rest of the weekend flew by quickly. Before I knew it, I was standing directly in front of the school doors with Justin by my side. Justin had bags under his eyes and looked like he'd just got out of bed. His usually well-styled blonde hair was just flopped onto his head. Most of it was covering his dull, half-open green eyes. What happened? He blinked a few times, suddenly alert. I repeated myself and he dragged out He cleared his throat as though he was going to tell a story. Well, he began. For the whole weekend, I was running errands for the gang. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That's why I can't follow you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. On this one mission, I was expected to have a partner. We were supposed to steal a very important file. Of course we succeeded, but we were almost caught a few times. We had to either kill them, knock them out, or wipe their memory using some liquids that we found. My partner had a past. Let me just say that it was against his will when he joined the gang. I gasped. You mean that your boss forced him to? Justin nodded. That's right. So I've always seen him around but never really got to know him. He was the mysterious dude in the corner. He never talks but is always looking at you like he wants to beat the crap out of you. So when I first talked to him, he didn't answer. I assumed that he was the man of few words type of guy. But when we were driving back, he mumbled something that sounded like, I need to get back to her. She won't be able to handle it. I asked him what he was talking about, but all I got was a glare. I rolled my eyes at his complaint. Give him time. Maybe he'd tell you soon, I said gently. Justin grumbled something that I did not catch. I giggled at his childish behavior. Come on, let's get to class. I gently pushed him forwards. We were walking down the hallway when Erin came out of nowhere, bumped my shoulder harder than necessary. I scowled after her and Justin let out a chuckle. We walked into Mr. Lopez's classroom and took our seats. All too soon. It was lunch. Justin and I were strolling to our table in the corner when we saw the popular S sitting there, giving each other questioning looks. We slowly approached them. Ashton looked up and gave me a smile, patting the seat next to him. I sat down slowly, feeling out of place. I felt like they were all too pretty and perfect and in the imperfection that needs to be gotten rid of. Ashton nudged me gently with his elbow and leaned down so that his breath blew against my ear. This action caused my breath to hitch and felt the corners of Ashton's lips quirk up. I hope that my mom didn't scare you on Saturday. I shook my head slightly. She seems like a nice lady. And the little girl, Jessica, she seems cool. Ashton breathed a sigh of relief. That's good to hear. He leaned back in his seat. I noticed that Justin's back was rigid and put an arm on his shoulder. He looked at me and I gave him a raised eyebrow, mouthing the word relax. He nodded, starting to loosen his bunched up muscles, but not before everyone around the table. Then Austin brought up the topic of Mrs. Mackenzie's homework, which everyone began conversing about, with the exception of Justin and I. Justin was in his own wonderland and I was in mine. I thought about escaping from my father. Follow Paul to lead whatever group he wants me to lead. But the problem was, how could I find him? Then an idea popped in my head. That was the start of my plan to find Paul. Chapter 13, More Gangsters Rise POV. My plan started that very night. Once I heard my father's loud snores, I silently opened my bedroom door and made my way down the stairs. I stepped outside into the warm summer air, feeling just a twinge of freedom. I turned to walk down the street, looking for the club. Soon, I found a familiar road and started to do a slow jog. Upon hearing the loud music, I started to run. I turned the corner and saw my destination. I was about to go in when a group of people caught my eye. Squinting, I looked closely. Then I made my way towards them. He seemed to have sensed me nearby and turned around with wide eyes. Riley, what were you doing here? Justin looked at me curiously. I started to squirm under his accusing gaze. But I didn't have to say anything because Justin said, That's okay. Probably going for a drink. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You don't look like the type who would. Come on. I want to show you some of my friends from the gang. He led me to a group of tough-looking people. They stopped talking when they saw that someone new had joined the group. I shrank back behind Justin's tall figure. A guy with blonde hair and pitch-black eyes nodded in my direction. Who's the lovely lady? His eyes trained on me the whole time. Justin tugged me out from behind him and gestured at me. This is my friend, Riley. Riley, these are my gang mates. He started to introduce the group. He started with the blonde, whose name was Dennis. He then introduces Cole, Jared, and Jamie. Cole has brown hair and grassy green eyes. Sure he's cute, but I know that by judging the way these boys were looking at the rear end of any female species, they were all players. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. He is a really nice guy. Jared was more secluded. I noticed that with his black hair and dark eyes. He would be able to blend in with his surroundings. But his skin was so pale that it almost looked as white as paper. Jamie was the most down-to-earth out of all of them. He had the Californian surfer type of look, with the blonde hair and blue eyes. He would always be smiling and cracking jokes here and there so it wouldn't and be awkward. So Riley Cole started. You're single. Am I right? He started to wiggle his eyebrows. If you two are going to hook up, make sure you use protection. I don't think her dad would be very happy to see you come back pregnant, Jamie said casually. I blushed profusely and looked at my shoes like it was the most interesting thing at the current moment. Dennis rolled his eyes and mumbled something that sounded awfully like, shit. What was I thinking when I started trying to make friends with him? Justin scowled at his friends and put an arm around me. Sorry that you had to meet them, Riley. I find them interesting. In a good way. Dennis pointed at me and looked at Jamie. You're lucky she didn't run away. Pretty girls like her only come once in a while. Jamie rolled his eyes and slapped Dennis's hand away from him. Well, come on, let's get into the club. I've been waiting to get in for so long. Dennis led the way, followed by Cole and Amy, who were gossiping. Then it was Justin and I who were walking in silence, and at the back was Jared, who had been mute the whole time. I looked at Jared and smiled at him, trying to be friendly, but his face stayed neutral. I started making faces at him, but all I got were looks of violence and irritation. Getting bored, I struck up a conversation with Justin. So are these the usual people you hang out with? He nodded. Yup, can you tell me more about them? I peered at him from the corner of my eyes. Justin looked thoughtful for a minute before saying, in the gang. Dennis is the hired murderer. Just like me. He obviously was in the gang before all of us, since he's like the leader and he is older. When Cole came, him and Dennis instantly clicked. They were the start of our group of friends. Even if it doesn't look like it, Cole is really good with camouflaging with his surroundings, making him a spy. When I joined, I was not exactly like them. All buff and muscular. I was more on the weaker side. They made up their mind that they'd detrain me for missions, and once I got my job, I found that I did better than expected. I turned out to be an assassin and spy. By the time Jed came, we were a really tightly knitted group. We decided that one more person wouldn't hurt. So he was in our group. Jared is a thief. He steals things like money or valuables. He is the observer in this group. He doesn't talk much, unless it's urgent or important. And last but not least, Jamie. Since we were a really close group of friends, we were quite hesitant to accept another person. Somehow, Jamie managed to get a spot in the group and tada. To my agent extraordinaire, Madame Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But you do want to check your pockets because he is good at pickpocketing. I nodded and checked my pockets, relieved that the cash he'd stolen was still in it. Once we were in the club, I excused myself to look for Paul. Of course I didn't tell them that I was looking for him. I told them I was going to the bathroom. I made my way through the heaps of people who were grinding against each other. I went to the hallway full of doors that led to who knows where. Making a wild guess, I peeked into the first door only to shut it quickly. Let's say that behind that door, there is a couple who are trying to hump each other through their clothes. Taking a deep breath, I looked into the next one, shutting it quickly as well. This process repeated a few times until I reached the sixth door. I crossed my fingers before inching the door open slowly. I cracked my eyes open when I didn't hear any moans or groans. The sight that met my eyes had me feeling two emotions at once. One was relief and the other was terror. I saw Paul sitting down on a chair looking at me with a surprised expression. The other person sitting across him was a man with dark hair. When he turned to face me, his icy blue eyes piercing soul, I knew who he was the moment I saw him. Sure, he has gotten older and more mature looking, but I still saw him as the man who killed my brother. Ben Westcott.